Alright, we're going to be working on another Eerie go-round. This was sent in stating that it quit working last year. Quit rotating. And I just pulled it out of the package and turned it on, and it's rotating. I have a funny feeling that something got lodged and probably unstuck itself in shipping. So we're going to open it up and see if there's something broken inside. Since I tried the original power supply and then the one I use here, which is this white one, and it works fine. But I don't want to send it back and find out that whatever is causing the problem comes back, since it could be a broken gear or a dying motor, slipping belt. So with no sound, I have it rotating so I can listen to it. And the person that sent it, I didn't realize because they sent several of them, and I just emptied the box to get ready to package them all up since this is the last one. They also were nice enough to send me a baggie with gears and motors. So if this thing needs one of those, it's a good chance that there might be a part inside this baggie. .58-piece hobby motors. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot, actually. And here are long nose, and these look like the 300 CAs. There's no marking on them. The baggie says just select DC 5-piece hobby motors. You can see that length of the shaft. You can trim these with a pair of wire cutters or side cutters, heavy duty ones, not these. These you'll break the jaws. You can use a saw too, like a hacksaw, fine tooth. So thank you. I'll put those in my motor pile. Now listening to it, I don't think the camera can pick it up. As it rotates, it's making a clunking or a grinding sound intermittently. It could be the figurines moving, or it could be there's something broke inside the drive mechanism up here in the top. So, if you didn't watch the previous one, how you take it apart is you got to get this top off. This top is glued on. Just like the previous video, I'm just going to poke around, see if I find a loose spot. And if not, we're going to apply heat. Because sometimes you do a good job, and other times you do a horrible job in gluing these things together. And this one appears to be a good one, because there is like no movement. It's also not centered. It's really close up front. So, warm it up. I have it on a relatively low heat, 120 degrees Celsius. The minimum this goes is 100, so this is just above minimum. And I'm just going to heat up an arc around the edge carefully. This is a resin top with a plastic base. So if you get it too hot, the resin's not going to distort as quickly as the plastic will. So we're trying to avoid damaging the plastic, which is the orange ring with the pumpkin faces on it. Alright, 120 is too low apparently. So I'm going to bump it up to 150 and do it again. here for the moment. Getting a little. Let's heat up the other side now. And a little heat in the front. Not too much because I don't want the sign to pop off. Now, when you rotate this to do this, make sure you lift it because these three plastic stakes twist and you don't want them to break. They are mighty flimsy, and that's what holds this whole top up for the most part. Yeah, I know it sounds pretty horrible. No, we're getting that glue to break free. Add a little bit more heat. Just take your time so you don't break or destroy the plastic. If you don't have a heat pen, probably high temp on a blow dryer, and try and point the majority of the heat at the thick resin and not the plastic lip. If you do not have a variable temperature heat gun, try low temp first. And if that doesn't work, then try high temp, same thing. I have the nozzle pointed at the base of the resin, because I'm trying to heat the resin up as well so it doesn't distort the plastic. Especially right here where the resin and the plastic are glued or touching each other, I need to heat the resin up so I can get it to break free. It'd be easier with a spudger, but since I still can't find mine and I still keep forgetting to order them, just keep using a small screwdriver. Got the majority of it to break free. The only part that's stuck is right here where it's touching. So I'm going to see if I can work it out. Like that. Alright. This plug here just unplugs the lights that do the two spotlights right there on the front. Here is the circuit board and your speaker, if you didn't see the first one. And then right here where these holes are, this white plastic is your drive mechanism. Now the only way to get to that is to unscrew it and remove these three posts. And these three posts, I'll tell you, is going to be easier to remove them from the base than from the top. This one already popped out. But they are super glued in basically, and if you heat them you can pop them up using screwdrivers and pliers. Now this one, you have to be a little careful. You got a little rat here in the way. So pliers. Some of y'all in the Midwest might recognize my new tools I've been using because they came from Menards. They don't have them out here in Arizona, but I was at a thrift store where it's a consignment thrift store, and the person came from the Midwest and they were selling some random stuff, and they had a pretty good deal on a plier set from Menards. So I figured I'd try them, since I know Menards is also a very large Lemax seller. I know I have bought stuff from them myself. Look for this is just a really small screwdriver to try and break the glue free, since it's soft from the heat. Got most of the glue, and then wiggling it, I can get it to pull the rest of the way out. So, let's see if this one's still pliable. No, that one's hardened back up. So you might have to do each one individually and not warm them all at the same time. See if I can do this one without knocking our little rat friend off. Because he is glued to the pole. There's a drop of glue on the front side at the base that the glue is touching the pole. The last one I did, I don't think he was touching the pole, but I'm going to see if I can still wiggle this out of its hole now that I broke most of the glue around the sides. So I'm just going to wiggle it back and forth. There we go. And I did it without breaking the rat. Look at that. So now we got a Phillips screwdriver, and I'm going to remove the screws, not the ones for the speaker, that hold the plastic top onto the drive mechanism. Could see the other screw. This screw is a little harder to get out. One with the wires too, it's really tight. If you have a screw that won't come out and you're just jumping threads, try and tighten it and then loosen it. It sounds counterintuitive, but what you're doing is you're breaking its bond with the material that it's stuck in. I believe it's just those two screws and this guy in the recessed hole, which is loose. That's weird. Wires that go down this hole, because of the glue, are so tight I can't lift it off. It's pulling on the red and black wire right here. So I'm going to see if I can lift these wires out of the glue. I might have to heat it up. It's just hot glue, but sometimes you can work the wires out carefully. So that's one set of tight wires. There is the drive mechanism. Now, if you want more room, the circuit board's just held on with these plastic pins that stick up. There's no glue or nothing. It's kind of weird, but they're snug enough that it's not coming out. But if you want more room, you can mark where these wires go and unplug them from the circuit board, or you can just tip it off to the side, which is all I'm going to do. The pulley looks okay. Let's check the gears. The springs, they seem to be pretty good. There's plenty of lubrication on, well, this one's dry. These four are wet. This one's dry. So we'll put some new lubrication. That's weird because it's on the same track. So we'll put some more lubrication on this when we're done. Take out these 3 screws that hold the top plate on for the motor and gears, and take a gander at what we got and see if we have a broken gear or if it's just low on lubrication. The other end, there's no glue on it. It was a little bit, there's a little drop and it just came out. It's fine. It'll all get re-glued back together. So there is a buttload of grease on these gears. Luckily it's not too close to the motor, because that's how these things burn out, is too much grease. I do see some wear on the second gear. So it might have a bad gear that's causing the intermittent turning issue. So this cover has 3 screws, which is pretty standard, and they are nasty because they are covered in grease. So I'm just going to stick them up there. There's actually enough grease on here I could take the grease off and stick it on the drive because it's the same grease, so we're not mixing greases. And I don't know if you can see the black grease and the black grease. Something on this has gotten hot or failed. Black grease is usually indicative of something that's gotten into the gear. Yeah. Looks like the bushing is deteriorating. There's a bushing underneath this 10 tooth that is a different type of nylon, and it has broken down. The 10 tooth looks okay. The gear next to it looks good. The reduction gear looks good. Let's look at that dirty gear again now that I have some magnifiers on. We have some chunk of something stuck in the bottom of the gear. Let's get that out. Looks like dirt, dust. It doesn't feel plasticky, but it's hard. It's almost like a miniature pebble. There we go. Alright, now let's see if we can get this 10 tooth off and inspect that. Now the 10 tooth is pressed on, so you're going to have to pry it off or pull it off carefully with pliers. And that's the bushing right there where the discoloration is that is wearing out. So I'm not sure if it's being used a lot or if they press the gear so tight that there's no slack. Because the one I took apart the last time, which was mine, I mean, granted, it's probably used only a few hours a year in total, did not have this much wear. Actually, I don't think it had any wear. So I'm going to try and clean off this black. I'm going to replace the 10 tooth because it has a groove in the bottom of it. Where this bushing is wearing, it's eaten a groove into the gear. So I'm going to take the package I just got, and it looks like there's some 10 tooth gears in here. It's a 14. Here's a 10 tooth. Like so. I'll put these away later. Just get them out of the way for the moment. What I'll do is, once I get this back on, I'm going to check the slack and see if the bushing has to be replaced. And then the one, yeah, look at all that from the bushing breaking down. Looks like the bushing on the top is breaking down too. That's just nasty. I don't come across this too often on indoor pieces. The outdoor pieces I do for the guy down the road that has the big outdoor display. I come across rotted bushings all the time because dirt and dust and grime get in there and it acts like sandpaper, which then eats through everything. Usually the black is caused by a wearing belt. So I'm also going to double check the belt. I know it looks okay. Now I got my x-ray specs on, magnifiers. I'm going to take a closer look at it and see if the belt's deteriorating. Press that gear down just a little more, like that. And we'll take this, we'll take some of this glob and I'm going to put it on the teeth so it can run through, since it's still got good grease. Now when you change a gear, it's important to make sure that you test it like I just did, where I stuck it in and then spun it with my fingers. Because what you're doing is you're checking to make sure that when you push the plastic cap back onto its standpipes, that it's not binding. Because if it's binding, it's not going to turn. Alrighty. And last screw. Now I'm going to rotate the pulley to make sure that we're good. Seems okay. Now I'm going to use the power and let it do it. I'm going to hold it up so it doesn't smack anything. And the belt's slipping, so it does need a belt. It turns and then the belt slips, and it turns and then the belt slips, it turns and the belt slips. So the intermittent slipping was probably the bushing breaking down and a bad belt, or a slipping belt. So I need to go find the belt for this thing, because it's right there. So I need to go find a belt, put a new belt on this real fast, and try it again. So, the belts I have around me right now are like that. They're a little too small, so I need to go locate my other belt package, which is with my spare parts for the Lemax, which is a different part of the house. So, I shall return in just a moment with hopefully the right size belt. Alright, I am back. I got a generic belt kit a while ago for fixing, believe it or not, this is made for radios, cassettes, CD players, etc. But a lot of the belts in the center here, like the one I just put on, because there's the original, they're the right size for Lemax. So I just randomly search for belts with different diameters and buy multi-packs. So it's all back together. Now let's see if it spins. It's turning. It's nice and smooth. I don't feel any weird vibrations coming out of it. Making sure that if I turn it off and turn it on, there's no sticky spots. Because if you over tighten these 3 screws, you can pinch the shaft or pinch the gear, like this gear here, and it stops it from rotating. Also, I want to make sure that the lubrication is getting into where it needs to go. You see a dry spot, so I'm going to scrape a little more off the edge and stick it on the teeth of the gear so it'll pull it in. Like that. Beautiful. Some of this small stuff is hard to see, but what I'm doing is taking the little bit of grease that's excessive, and then as it's spinning, I'm putting it on the teeth where they mesh. To turn off. Thank you. So that way it pulls it in and coats the part that actually touches. And then the shafts are already well lubricated, because you got to make sure the shafts are lubricated too, because this stuff is all over. It's making it really hard to grab things because everything's slick. But we want to make sure she's nice and clean. All the black grease has been removed. The new belt is on. Get rid of the old belt. Now we just need to set this back in to its 3 screw holes, which it should go this way. So fast that you forget how to put this back on. Like so. Okay, that should line up. Right there. Just like that. I had it upside down, plus I guess it's a good thing, and there's a curl of plastic that was sticking up that could have posed a problem if it ever broke off and got stuck into the mechanism. Now to glue it back together, I'm not going to use hard glue. I'm going to use hot glue because, of course, just like anything, you want to be able to remove it again when the new belt fails or a gear breaks, or if you want to re-lubricate this. Technically, a lubrication they put in here is lifetime lubrication, but lifetime varies on your climate, your humidity, your dust. Like out here, monsoon season especially, when we have big dust storms roll through every few days during the summer, you you don't want to run these. Excuse me. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that screwdriver again, and I'm going to scrape off the big clumps, which is going to be a little harder since I put it back together. Where are they? And I'm going to lubricate this this top. So this one's the dry one. So you can clean all of this off and use a lithium grease style. Make sure it's thin, because I've got lithium greases that were so thick that the mechanism didn't work. You can use a silicone based one, but you gotta remove all the lithium or the original grease if you do that, because they don't like to react with each other very well. They don't play nice together. You can use a graphite based one. I've done that mainly for the ones that are outdoors, just because graphite's a little bit longer. That's why we use it in locks as an example, so that way your locks can handle the climate without seizing up. So, and when you put this back on, make sure as you lower the top down, you pull all the wires back up. And then make sure you line up all your holes. Now it is going to fight you when you put it in. And the reason it's going to fight you is you're pushing down those springs for the characters. So you'll feel the difference between it not lining up and the characters. If it's not lining up, it's going to be really hard, and you can just feel that it's not right. So, and these flat top spring screws is because these are actually what hold the springs down while you screw it and provide most of the resistance. The other screw does using the plastic housing, while these use the flanges on the screw head. So if you lose these screws, you need to replace them with flat top screws or a standard hobby screw like this with a little washer like that to imitate that flange. Another thing you do is just take them off the speaker, see, and put the washer and screw on the speaker, because the speaker is also technically it's glued in. They usually put a little bead of hot glue around it. Speaking of hot glue, we're going to need the hot glue. I might as well get the hot glue turned on and warmed up. So the circuit board, like I said, just fits on these little stakes like so. And then I'm going to re-glue these wires down. Once I straighten them out a little bit. Make sure I got the excessive slack out of the holes. And I'm also going to use hot glue to put the stakes back in for the same reason if it has to come back apart again. Uh-oh. She's not turning now, so I must have not got this completely lined up with these screws. I guess I should leave it plugged in so I can test it. It's a good thing to test the stuff before you fully assemble, because that would suck if I re-glued everything back in and found out that something came out of alignment, causing it not to spin. So it's possible that it's over tightened or one of these characters is misaligned on the track. It is caught on the wire, and that'll do it. So even though I was pulling up the slack because I had to put the screw in and I didn't double check the tension, this gray and red wire right here is caught in the mechanism, and that is why she's not turning. So So that's the other reason why they're hot glued on the top, is so that way they don't slide back down, because they'll get caught in the large teeth of the outer ring. So put these screws back in and test it again, and if it works, then definitely make sure you hot glue them in place. So you don't want them to get caught. Now, one thing I do like to do when I take apart stuff like this, it just uses a staked circuit board, meaning there's nothing holding on except for the 4 pins, is to put a dab of hot glue on 1 or 2 of the pins. So that way, if the thing gets turned upside down, like in shipping, going back, the circuit board isn't flopping around inside, possibly damaging itself or getting stuck to the magnet. Now, the blob chip that's on the back of the board, or excuse me, the 8-pin chip, because this one was pre-blob or didn't require it. You don't want it to potentially get screwed up from the magnetism. It shouldn't technically, but there is this guy named Murphy that likes to hang around, as you saw here, where he permitted the wire. There we go. So now they're moving. So yeah, it's just I just got the wire caught. So now I'm just going to double check, make sure all my wires are pulled taut through the hole, so I can now re-adhere them to their plastic home right in there. Careful when you're hot gluing, you can get second and third degree burns. Usually when I have to glue a bunch of wires down like this, I will use something like my screwdriver, which is why I was peeling stuff off of it, because it's got glue from the last one I did. And you can see this is chipped resin from the glue on the bottom while that's heating up. So there's little pieces that are flaked out. Or this is the chip here, and that's the chip here from the glue, which acts like an alignment, so you know if you have it on square when it drops in. But I'm also, like I said, not only going to hot glue this, I'm going to hot glue these. The only time I ever use super glue is, let's say this pumpkin broke off, or that pumpkin, or that guy with the pumpkin, or that skeleton, or the sign. Stuff that you do not need to remove to repair, then I'll use Gorilla Glue. But stuff that needs to be repaired, I use hot glue. Like that. Ooh, that is toasty. So once this glue dries enough that it'll stay, I'm going to add a little bit more on the edge here and a little right here. So can never get that swirl it around trick to work where it, and we still got movement, which is good. And now I'm going to glue around and plug this back in. So I'm going to plug this in first so I don't forget. I'm going to put the drop of glue on the stake like I said. One right there and one right there. And now I'm going to run a bead on top of the old hard glue. If you're really particular about it, you can chisel or sand the old hard glue off. I never really do. And then stick this down. And get it to line up. There we go. It just dropped into the chips. And now these battery operated glue guns are a lifesaver. I have enough cords on my bench, as you can see, what you see on the edges, that another cord for a glue gun. I think one of the originals was the one from Ryobi. This is just a cheap one off of Amazon. Clean up the glue strings and then give it a final test. These glue strings get everywhere. Look at that. All right. There we go. So, it's ready to go back to its owner. That's this one. This one was, because the first one I took apart was one that fully functioned. It was my personal one that wasn't broken. I took it apart to show people how to take it apart. This one actually had a problem. It was an intermittent problem, but it still had a problem nonetheless. So, basically, recap real fast. You might have to heat up the edges, and it's not centered, unfortunately. That's how it fit back in, just like it was before. So it lined up on those chunks of resin. But heat up the edge, heat up the resin, not the plastic, and then work your way around. A spudger works really good, which I said I can't find mine. I've lost mine a while ago, and I keep forgetting to buy replacements. Pop the top off, careful, there's one wire. Unplug the wire from the circuit board, set the top out of the way so it's not going to get smacked, broken, knocked, lost, so on and so forth. 3 screws, 2 flathead screws that have the lip, 1 small screw that doesn't because it has a plastic housing that pushes down. Take those out, break the glue, you might need heat to do so, or just carefully pry the glue out and lift the wires so when you start to separate you have a feed mechanism. Once you get all that done, then heat the bottom of the 3 posts. Right there, and the other one's on the bottom. And carefully pry, scrape. I use there it is, a broken blade screwdriver. It's kind of shaped like a chisel because it snapped. And I scrape the excess glob off that's outside, and then I use needle nose. And I just grab it, I'll demonstrate on this, and then grab it like that, and then I just wiggle back and forth until this starts to come out of the hole, because there's a hole in the bottom plate and the top plate that is stuck in with glue, of course. And you can't scrape the glue out because it's in a recessed hole. So once I did that, set it off to the side. If they come out of the top, just glue them back in. It's just easier to pull them out of the bottom than the top. I don't know why. I've always found it easier on the, whether it's Department 56 or Lemax, when they have the studs. It always seems to, or the poles, shafts, whatever you want to call them, it always seems to be easier to come off the bottom plate than the top. So lift the top, set it off to the side, pull out your drive mechanism if you have to replace a gear. Excuse me, if you don't, the pulley's right on top, and replace the pulley band. And it's just a piece of garbage. Then put it all back together before you glue it all down. Test it. Make sure that you didn't tighten anything, nothing's binding, or in my case, I had a wire that I didn't pull all the way, so when I put the top on, it was pushing it into the large teeth which do the driving. So yeah, so once that's done, make sure all your wires are pulled taut, put the screws in, test it, hot glue it down, make sure it all works again just in case, and then glue on your top, glue on your legs, and you're good. If you do decide to use something like Gorilla Glue, which is what I use, the brush applicator one works great for doing the legs, which is the yellow cap version. Something like this is good for going around the top because it's just a nozzle. If you use the original style Gorilla Glues like that, this isn't the one that expands. This you have to let sit for 24 hours. So if you were to glue this top on with this, 24 hours before you can move this thing. Like the hot glue, it's just a couple of minutes. So, and then test it out again. See? And that clicking vibration sound that I felt is gone. All I hear is the hum of the motor and the characters going up and down. So that was probably the debris from the wearing bushings in the gears, and possibly the pulley slipping, so it was jerking. So instead of a nice smooth rotation, it was going as it was spinning, since the belt apparently was going bad. So that concludes a intermittently broken Eerie go-round versus the last video, which was a fully functional Eerie go-round. This is a relatively easy piece to take apart. Just don't break the poles because they're plastic. If you break them, you have to glue them all back together again. Poles, you can see how it twists. The bottom doesn't move, but the top does. It's not the greatest design. I think the poles should have a metal rod inside. And if you do break one, you could probably fabric cobble something out of a piece of brass or aluminum rod and paint it. Decorate it with some Mod Podge or hot glue to re-imitate the vines. You know, have fun with it. It's yours. So, other than that, that's it. Thanks for watching this one. Until the next one.